Okay, we are now recording. So this is Sheila Finkelstein. Welcome all. I'm so happy to see you, and we'll be glad to see the people on Facebook and comments. I apologize for the dinging when people are entering the room. And this is about the magic of shifting perspectives. And one of the perspectives we can shift about ourselves is that we're not good enough. We should be doing it perfectly, and it's okay to be otherwise. So just to know, I'd appreciate everybody. I see you all have yourself muted. I am and will be recording. And just so you know, if it stays up on Facebook on the live, people's names and faces would be seen. Anything that's recorded on Zoom, when it's recorded to a computer, you do not see the names of people. So just the face are there. So that's a tip for any of you that do it. I record all my Zoom on my computer, and in the processing, whatever back, Zoom eliminates the names. So I've asked everybody if mute is great. It looks like, I'm not sure about muting yourself or not. We have a full presentation. Uta and I have probably spent about 3.5 hours just together on Zoom testing this out and going back and forth. And we want you to have great value. I want to say up front, so you don't think I'm being rude, there may be times with agreement that I may stop Uta so that we aren't here for 2 hours and stop myself. She can stop me also. So I invite you all to be here with an open mind. We talked about fear. A lot of us might have some expectations of what we're going to see here tonight. Remove any kind of expectations and whether it's something you can do or can't do or anything like that. And just be open when Uta shares of what might be possible for you if just when you'll see when she shares. So I'm requesting open. Just to be upfront or disclaimer, next month I will be offering a 4-session program at no fee at this point. And one of the reasons for that, and why I'm so love that Uta is here, is that my desire that we all be aware of what's in front of us in the world, what's going on, not in the world, in our visual world and what our hearing and everything else. And Uta is such a prime example of what can happen and what she's experienced. So that's my overview. I request that you keep chat for simply questions that you may have that you want us to answer. You can even hold them at the end. Anybody on Facebook who's watching, if you put any of your anything in comments, we should be able to see that. We may or may not be able to get to answer it here, but Uta or I will go back into this replay later and answer any kind of comments are there. So questions, so I'm asking that you reserve chat for questions that you say totally present. I'm sure that you've been on Zoom things where chat goes through and you kind of get distracted for a minute or look at that. So just even hold your questions to the end and then type them in, or type them if you get a thought of somebody as Uta's sharing. Feel free to enter it, but then we all stay present and don't pay attention. I'm running this on speaker view, so you should just see Uta and me, and we both should be together, but it's not working that way. So how to learn. Anyway, so I think that's it. If you have an immediate question that must be answered, there's in the reaction, you can raise your hand. Okay. Okay. So I don't see any raised hand. And again, I am delighted that you're all here. As I said, I'm Sheila Finkelstein of Treasure Your Life Now. There's plenty you can introduce, but this isn't about me. It's about you and about Uta. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Uta Goldkuhle.
You did that right.
I've known her for 12 or 13 years. We met at an event. And you know how sometimes we make judgments on people, not judgments, but had I known Ute's background, I would have thought she was much too impressive and important for me, and I never would have connected with her like this. So she's got her PhD. There's a friend of mine also that has that years ago, a very close friend of mine, the same experience. You know, I'm not PhD material. So again, we're human, kind of eliminate the judgment. So background and oh no, it's the wrong page. And Ute's great. If you ever want anybody to interview, work together with her, and she followed the things and she really prepared great and easy. So Ute was born in World War II in Germany, and she immigrated to the United States at age 22. She had no education. She was a high school dropout, and she lived the American dream. She earned her doctorate in public health at the age of 56. And a rich professional life of 46 years in healthcare as a nurse, nurse practitioner, in leadership, program development, and research and teaching. She retired from University of Hawaii. I don't know if our Hawaii, one who lives in Hawaii is on here now, but she retired from the University of Hawaii as an adjunct professor and now lives in Cleveland, Ohio. Her greatest joy and purpose in life is her family and her 6 thriving, amazing teenage grandchildren. And I remember when she was doing grandparent kind of things with her grandchildren. So was it all easy? I doubt that any of us would think it was an easy trip. No. And then I want her to explain, though, how she said she wrote out that I could do it, you know, remarkable inner peace, balance, and joy in this trip she took. This session, our time here together is not about the trip so much. It's what inspired that trip and what she got out of it. Okay, Ute, I think I've spoken enough. You're on.
Excellent, excellent. Here, 2 octogenarians trying the technology future here tonight, right? And as Sheila said, in 2018, at age 77, I ventured on a 2-month solo trip from Cleveland through the Northwest, through California, returned the Midwest, back to Cleveland. And that in my little 2010 Toyota Yaris, 2-door stick shift, the smallest car in the Midwest. And this was a long time dream. I had it actually since a very young mother, still in the enculturation process and trying to find my way, had 2 wonderful little children. And I heard the Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and I heard the book being read on the radio, and it did something. I want to be Jonathan, Jonathan the Seagull. That stuck with me, and so finally, I was able to manage it 2 years ago.
So for those that may not know, what was it about Jonathan Livingston Seagull?
It was a seagull who freed himself from the flocks and flew beyond, spread his wings beyond, and tried to get his others to understand him and to come along, and developed a philosophy of life, and that was beyond most of his flock to understand. And I've read the book a few times. In any case, so that was a long time dream. Finally, I made it. It took a long time. I made it, and to explore, the reason I wanted to explore alone, to be free of any constraints and detailed plans. I'm not a planning person. I'm pretty spontaneous. I wanted to explore and discover the lesser known around the corner, off the beaten track. If there was a sign, I wanted to and not ask anybody, can we drive there? And I returned with a totally unexpected inner peace, a balance and contentment that has not left me since. So we are almost 2.5 years, has totally changed my life. And as such, it has even further enriched my aging life. Mm. And that is, Sheila and I were talking, if that one thing I can inspire, particularly I'm working on my grandchildren, find yourself early, find the truth in yourself, and you will be free. You will be free of the limitations that brings. Now, why did that happen? Only in hindsight can I explain this, because it didn't go, I still feel, wow. The lens of the camera became my tool of soul connection with the nature. Can you relate to that? It's the lens that became connected with my soul. It's not the picture. It's a picture that translated to me. And it still continues. I have grown into that. The pen allowed me to convey, with however limited words, initially to my family and then to friends, how we and life are an integral part of nature around us, even if we only see and hear the whispers, expressions, and lessons of life. And I will, at the end, I will give a few pictures that translate. I want to show you why and what impressed me. Some from the trip, a few, and some I take on my walks. And so I came back with, I said that, that the nature is an incredible healer that goes beyond any psychiatrist, psychologist, or counselor could accomplish. The reason I say that, because I've gone through it all. I went through PTSD, and it wasn't an easy journey, but very fulfilling in hindsight. It made me the person who I am today. And if I can stimulate anyone to never give up, nature is your guide to lead you to wherever, whatever you want to achieve and however you want to understand it. So Sheila, you had some questions, so I don't ramble on all along. I can't hear you, Sheila.
What happened is I took my phone off the hook. Those of you old enough to remember the phone on the hook, because I didn't want it to unexpectedly ring. I have still a landline. So maybe, Ute, you should start with your pictures, because there's a passion that comes through. Now, Ute and I went through some pictures, actually an hour this afternoon, and she went into full descriptions of them, and the passion was kind of long. So we'll watch what she has now, and then know that I have that recorded separately, and you'll be able to have that. So those that really wanted to get into all the cracks and crevices of what Ute experience can see that. So want to go ahead with your photos now, because I want people to hear your passion and your energy.
Well, and I think then the pictures will elicit what I have to say, and then people can ask questions.
Right, and I'll ask you some more, sure.
How's that? All right, let me get to the, so I need to share here, right? How do I do this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Share, okay.
Oh, interesting.
You are sharing the screen now, is that correct? Can you see? Can you see?
Well, now we can. Now you're getting into your presentation. Good.
All right. All right, it's the magic of shifting perspectives. I'm not going really into where all this was, but this I have to do. And this is anyone who goes to Arizona, you need to go to the Antelope Canyon in Arizona. This was almost, it was on my return, but it brought this wow, not only of what you see, the pictures, the reflections of all of it, but it put it together in terms of, wow, this is what life is. Do you see how the formations, the different colors, this canyon was built millenniums ago through rain, through floods, and seeped into the sandstone and built this. No, it's absolutely original. All right. So the only time you can see this perspective, the light, is at a certain time around noontime during the summer when the sun is at a certain angle. And of course, and I was able to catch that. I was there at the right time. And here it is the symbolism of what life is. You have extreme darkness on the left, and it lightens up to the brilliance of light against the sun. And that was really summed it up for me, what I've experienced during the previous 2 months, a month and a half. Now, going back then, why was it so joyful? This is a symbol of, I see, this is my lifeline up there, and everybody has that, because none of us goes the straight line, what we envision. Our life goes differently than what we envision. And it will have cracks. It has detours. The crack in there, I have to find out, how do I get to the other side again, that I'm on track with life? And that's what it really is about, rather than staying down here and feeling I never will get up again. When you file total bankruptcy, lose everything, and you look down here and life goes down, you find your way up again if you don't give up. And at the same time, we feel so big. We feel strong, we feel powerful, and everything we can handle. Well, you just go to the redwoods, and some of you probably have been there, and just stand down here. We have been standing under tall trees. This is an experience, I cannot explain it. It is, you absolutely feel, wow, I am not the power I think I am. I can align myself with the power. I can stand there, I can admire it. But it truly was another realization. I extended my time in the redwoods in order to really embrace it much further. We have amazing survival skills. Well, nature. You look at this creek. And so I wander around, and you think it's a nice creek. Look at the survival of the tree. The roots here washed out, trying to find still some nourishment, some water, and the tree is alive, crippled. And so is this one. I'm always fascinated by root systems. They're trying to find their way down below is a creek. And there's always a way to get nourishment again, to maintain life and live it to the fullest we can. Same here. This is a root system, and the tree is alive, washed out, but trying to survive for I don't know how many years already. Here is one, I'm always fascinated by it, holding on to the rocks, rotten down in between, and yet above there, I couldn't capture it in the picture, is life. How long, under what circumstances is the tree under minimal, under harsh conditions, and survives? and
That's
gives
the tree above there, just to help, because I ascertain it looks so much like a rock.
it
And
does. It aligns with it, and then the light condition probably brings it out as well. Or I came upon a whole field of lava somewhere. Don't ask me where. I forgot. Look at this tree. How did that tree survive up there under the harshest conditions? Well, look at yourself. I looked at myself and I thought, maybe I understand that tree, because conditions have been harsh, but look at, he's enjoying in the blue, beautiful sky on a beautiful weather, has withstood and still is the harshest weather around, right? And this is another most fascinating in the redwoods. This is 1,000-year-old redwood, died, crashed, fell down. What the redwood does, nourishes new life. This is a new redwood tree here, the babies, and they feed on the mother. And you see it over and over. You see it here, which was, it was most impressive. The redwoods, the trees also, this is a tree that initially, you see this bump, that was a sick old tree, got sick. What happened? It brought out new trees on either side who are already older. I heard that from a ranger who walked, with whom I walked. And they strengthened two babies, let's say, almost embraced the sick mother to hold it together until end of life. And out of it comes a new tree. Well, aren't we doing the same? As people, we care about our children, we hug them, we don't like them to be ill, and we would like to do anything. And so do our children again, most of them want to protect us. And I added this picture because this is where it all suddenly I felt. These were in the up north, the upland redwoods, which is in southern Oregon and North California. And those are in the more the moist. That is, the fog is every day there. That's the nourishment for the trees. And then it dribbles down and nourishes the everything else. It was a bed of amazing colors, an amazing feeling. All these trees, the supporting each other, and there I felt, wow, I extended my trip for another 2 days because I needed, the experience was overwhelming. And underneath one, do you know what that is? That is a banana slug. Of many things, a banana slug lives in the up north wetlands. And this one, they clean the bed of the redwoods, so to prevent bad bacteria to injure the roots of the tree, of the redwoods. That's what they mostly do. They keep this, they stick around to keep that sort of a symbiotic relationship. And so again, we are interconnected with each other. So that brought like just a little glimpse of how nature is really, was my teacher, was my healer, my nurturer, and then also comforter. And then at the same time, it brings then also the joy of how creative they are. I just throw in a little few whimsical things. Actually, I did it for my grandchildren too. It's not only the park what impressed me, it is off the beaten track. Here was out in the middle of nowhere, somebody had made a motorcycle out of horseshoes, all right, because it's a horse country. And I just saw it from far away. I thought, what is this? Turned turned my car and zoomed in there, and that was the freedom and the enjoyment. Here, in a small, dinky little town, I walked around out of the walkway, popped up this guy, no purpose, nothing you could trip over. And I asked somebody, what is it? What does it mean? I don't know. But it's the unconstrained expression of our creativity if we are not hindered by norms, regulations, and all of it. I just was really intrigued by that. It's the same here somewhere. I find a garbage can out of in some neighborhood, and then I parked a car on my way back, just behind this car. And what is this? Looking closer, there were two women had changed their car to, they lived in there and they were taking a nap. That car was a little bigger, but I had total identification with that. I thought it was pretty. And so as it had to be, this was practically the last picture on my last way after this overwhelmed, filled with amazing impressions and feeling so well. I had never felt as well in my life before. I was caught here was a big sunflower field, wide, over a mile long of sunflowers. And I don't think there was a coincidence. You know what the sunflowers stand for, right? They stand for joy, for hope, for absolutely, and I read up on it, each culture has a different meaning, and the sunflower always turns to the sun, as you know, and this is how I returned, and has never left me. Any questions?
Wow. So that was beautiful, Ute. Ute. I used to say Tay, and it's taking a while to get to the Te. So we talked about, or we promoted this in terms of fear. And when you and I talked today, I was talking about my fear of heights and things like that. And you distinguish two types of fear. Also, let me get into speaker again. So I won't be distracted. And so and then you share, so how did this inner calm come? I know you said, so I'm throwing a lot at you, so take each piece as you want. I know, I'm thinking you got a lot out of the writing and how that came. And so I guess just talk fears, and then just how did all this contribute to your inner calm?
Okay, as long as I remember, and I think it goes way beyond my memory, I've lived all my life with the deepest anxiety and fear, with nightmares. And the core of it came because I'm a war child. I was born during the war in the most difficult circumstances, as my mother was. And I could never understand why I had this deep fear. Believe me, I did counseling, I did everything I could, meditation, mindful medication, and all of this. And you would not know, you wouldn't have known that. Nobody knew this, but I didn't go a day without an inner anxiety and restlessness and fear. So that is a different fear. That is not a fear of heights. I'm still afraid of heights. And I'm afraid if a burglar comes in, and I'm afraid of guns, and I'm afraid of, not aside from disliking guns, I'm just afraid of things we all would be afraid of. A dog runs after us and wants to bite us, I'm afraid. That's a different fear, because that we have a different reaction to it. The fight and flight reaction. But the inner core fear, there is no fight and flight. It doesn't leave you. And it is combined, then it brings in securities, it brings in, what if I did something, you know, almost an imagination. What if I did something to any one of you? And I had the fear of that I wouldn't do that. I know I wouldn't do this. So all of this, that I can, the only way, in just imagine that, and maybe imagine it in an exaggerated way, and suddenly you are free of that. You are in total balance. And you know, some of you have probably heard the neuroplasticity phenomena. You can look it up. It is, emotions are connected to our brain as well. It brings to the neurons how they connect and communicate with each other. And what happened, it's very clear to me, the 2 months of intense loneliness. I had 1 month, I didn't speak with anyone except Airbnb lodging to get into my room. And or finding my, you know, getting information at certain parks and so forth. I didn't speak to any conversation with anybody. And I was totally immersed. And somebody said to me, when you drive through the Midwest, you better take some books on tape and music along. I was not one moment bored. I was so immersed in the whole environment, the cloud formations, the lights, the expansive, that it went so fast. Before I knew it, 6 hours were gone. When I didn't see a car, my little thing just drove along through the field, and I was not one moment, I felt, how long will this take? I was totally immersed, and I didn't have to ask anybody, please stop, can I go to the bathroom? You know, when you drive with somebody else in the car, you are not alone. So it's a different, you can have great enjoyment, but it's a different experience. So this was a total immerse of absorbing everything around me and making myself being part of what was around me. So it was like almost like a unity. So that's, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Losing anxiety?
Yeah, and I would suspect that you might be able to take some of that and bring a little bit less of the fear of heights or something to you, might ease up, but that's kind of another thing.
That's a different approach.
Right.
Yeah.
So you talk about, it was really interesting how you, so a lot of people think they can't write, and like you tell us about your writing thing and how it came to be, and then how you said sometimes you look at it now and you can't even believe you wrote that. But being in the moment, a lot of this is being in the moment. So now you can explain that.
Right. I always was creative in arts and crafts and crafty stuff and all of it. And I had, as very young, I thought, oh, I like to write that, but it was a different era. You know, the post-war, nobody would know, you know, that is a luxury to look into the child psychiatry of as a different child. I was always a different child. And then coming here and the whole enculturation process, learning the language, learning the words. I always loved the English language, the words. You have such a rich vocabulary. And I admire a well-written piece, but I can't create it like that. However, then I grew up, you know, studying 40 years of doing professional writing. So creative writing was not, I thought I will probably not be able to do this. It was on the trip, to my greatest surprise, I had no idea. All I wanted to is convey to my grandchildren the impression I wanted them to learn to see, you don't have to drive cross country. I want them to learn to be aware of your surroundings, that you are part of the universe, part of the nature. And so what happened, that people responded, friends, on Facebook, I've just friends and family, they responded, and to my utter surprise, and they were waiting for what I had to say often. And so it became, wow, suddenly my communication expanded to share what I felt that day and the relationship to it. And you can look it up on Facebook. I mean, it's still there 2 years ago. But it's suddenly discovered, and the feedback of the friends brought it a whole new dimension into that the pictures became an integral part of my pen in the evening. In the evening, I would go through the pictures I took, of course, enormous many, checked some, and what came to my mind, just jotted down to relate. And I became, it came to a point that I was conversating with my children and with friends as I was driving. Oh, look at this. How do I put this together? Not directly show and tell, but the awesomeness of creative people, of creativity in the community. Each community is different. The variety of natural environment, and on and on and on. And that daily a joy. And to just interject, in between, when in California, I revisited a few wonderful friends. And after a while, I couldn't wait to get out to be by myself in nature. I couldn't handle the traffic or the too much socialization and too much, how wonderful it was to see everybody within myself. I wanted to go back into my safe cocoon.
Ute, I'm going to reset. Remember, at the very beginning, those are just joined, and I have permission because I'm looking at the time. I want, I'm not being rude. So what I hear was that connection. You've also been, and I will have a question on fear because you said something and there's a question here on that, but also and just in the seeing, you mentioned seeing different things. So tell us a little bit about your story with the camera. And you've talked to me in the past about the lens. And so talk about seeing. I mean, we've gotten the writing, what that's done, and the expression, and how the pictures talk to you even after you came back. But back
all right. I was not a camera person. And the old cameras. And so when I went to Hawaii and the brilliant flowers, and I bought a camera, my first camera, a Minolta, only to realize I'm not a techie. I can't handle all the numbers, the adjustments. I took a course. It was useless for me. I couldn't do anything. What I did discovered was the close up, to watch something very close up through the lens. That opened up a whole new world to look into a flower. And that became, it was a difficult times at times. I went through deep depressions in Hawaii. And what I did, I discovered I take the camera for a day and just look through the lens. And I never took a picture. And I came back and felt so good because I saw everything. A different world opened up to me. And it was, again, the focus on the beauty around that overtook all the emotions and all of this, what I tried to straighten out in my head and in my soul. And that was the beginning. Now, as you know, with those old cameras, you were very stingy with doing a picture because you had to have it developed, right? And either it worked or it didn't work. And I knew, because I could not deal with the settings of it. So here comes the digital camera. And that's when actually I exploded. It became this thing became my friend. You know, it's, and you don't have to worry about it, and you really can immerse yourself. And that's the marvel of technology. There's a lot that is maybe against it, but I think it's also a marvel of what it can do. This camera has become, till today, some of the pictures are, which I take on a regular walk, it becomes part of me. You know, it's because, and when I walk, it's interesting, I don't look for a picture. When I walk, I look through I have my lens, I have the lens already in my head. And what I want to see, because a friend of mine, she wanted to walk with me. What do you see all there? Can I walk with you? And she sees some of the pictures and says, sure. So here we walk, and she, you know, like an exercise walking. Well, that doesn't work. And then suddenly when I say, did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see the trees, the variety of trees? Oh, yes, that's beautiful. You know, and she looks differently today around. So sometimes it's the same. I'm stimulated by that. Sheila stimulated me to look at sculptures, see as pictures. We both look at this differently initially. So if that is a tool for you, use it. It's amazing what it can do.
Okay, I really appreciate that and connect. It's interesting. You and I see a little bit differently. There's still the connection. One of the
She's an amazing photographer. I'm just a lens looker.
Yeah. See, I mean, you see what I said about doing the thing. I have this thing with Uta now, and in my communication tips, I've told about communicating. One thing it's important to remember: we are all mirrors. So when you see something in someone else, they are really mirroring you. So I invite you, when you're praising someone else or even upset and judging or something, that you stop for a minute and think about who you are and how that's you also. Okay, that was a diversion. Back to me.
Maybe anybody has any questions.
No, wait a minute. Yeah, I still have a couple more. But people, you can start putting your questions in if you have, and there is a question from Wendy. But this has been wonderful, Uta. I love nature, you love nature, and it's going out. Unfortunately, you and I are very lucky. You live near woods, I live near wetlands, I have outside my home. There are people that aren't as fortunate as we are with the nature right now and are kind of homebound. So tell me how you bring this to within your house and other kinds of things, the same kind of looking and experiencing that you're talking about.
Absolutely. This has turned my life into mindful living. In other words, there were times, you know, I had a surgery and I couldn't leave, or I just wasn't able to walk outside. I can have that communication with a flower in my apartment. I look out the window and I begin to look in details, to focus. I can see in my environment, suddenly I look at colors and form, how they actually communicate to us. You know, we all have different colors we are responding to. That's a communication, you know. And so you begin to, in my own environment, or on a dark, gloomy day, everything is gloomy. It's no longer existing. I turn that gloomy day into a mindful, wow, maybe I should dust a little bit. It looks different, but look at here. It has a different veil over. Let's uncover the veil. But I look at it totally different. I communicate with the environment through my eyes, how I see it, how I feel it. And it is a method I learned from the Buddhism.
Okay, we're going to
just a mindful focus on something specific.
Okay, thanks. And that again, remind back to the beginning, I have permission to stop because we're now Why I said 45 minutes, but well beyond. And also, Ute and I also talked about like the kitchen, the fruits and the vegetables and all of this. And Ute said even she can look at the furniture and the color and something there that responds. Okay, I want to go back, and Wendy asked, well, first I'll give you a comment. Well, this is a quick question. One person asked, how long was your adventure? And she said, your pictures are beautiful.
Thank you. The adventure was for 2 months, but it started only. It has never stopped since I came home. And now I honestly have to say, I always have the desire. I went this past winter in a COVID-safe area to a pretty remote area in the Allegheny Mountains. Spent a whole week just walking.
Yourself?
Walking totally by myself.
Okay, so that leads into Wendy's question, who asked you to talk about how a 70-year-old, and now you're almost 80, is gutsy enough to do a solo trip. Are there any issues out there, any fears? And she said she could never do it alone, and there are probably others that feel the same way.
Good questions. And to be honest, before the 2 days before I was ready to go, there was no deadline. I could postpone it, but I finally got to a point. I had packed and organized everything for the time. I didn't really plan exactly 2 months. I thought, however it takes, I will wait until I have enough. Maybe I come back in 2 days, all right? The 2 days before, I had almost everything. I froze. What am I doing? Are you crazy? I had no idea. People were asking me, and that's how it started. So where are you going to stay the first night? I don't know. And so what am I doing? And I guess what I did? I absolutely froze. I spent a whole day in bed, was on a Sunday, and read again Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I read the whole day, and there was all the message. Next day, ready to roll. Hopped into the car, off towards Chicago. And then, as I got closer, I just looked where I could find a reasonable place to stay. They have certain criteria of safety, but not fancy, and go from there. And that's how it went. And I became very familiar with Airbnb and knowledgeable how to select it. And it's a fear after it took about 3 days. After 2 or 3 days, I felt, oh my God, I looked on the map. I've just left, according to the map, you go all around, right? I'd left this kind of little distance compared to what I had in mind. I thought, oh, I'm never going to make it. And certain safety measures. My sons both had this app. They could follow me.
Yeah, so that fits in there also. Somebody asked how your children, so you could place to talk about it, how your children reacted to this whole thing.
Well, I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, of course, 2 daughter-in-laws. They know me well enough. There's no stopping once I get going. The more they would talk me out of it, the more I would do it. And so I had talked about this. I wanted to do it, and I didn't. And even they had their doubts. Is that she's going to come back in a week. And once I got to the Badlands, was it the Badlands? I forgot. Once I got to the first park in this, wow, there was no return. Absolutely no return. Mind you, I'm totally dyslexic. I have no sense of direction, but the GPS is your friend. And I had the map, I compared it and compared in the evening. Okay, I had a general, maybe if I make X number, or I want to just travel 50 miles around, what is there? And looked up small places, read a little bit. Is it interesting? Is it not? And often I totally diverted because I saw a sign And then, whoom, that looks interesting. And it took a life of its own.
Yeah, so I imagine having that freedom to what you said.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And fear, if you fear, you only can fear a big city. You go out there. I have wonderful, wonderful experience of, once, for even to find a gas station, or sometimes out in the, or one of my tires got a little bit low, and somebody I asked, and they said, okay, go there and go there and go there and go there, and John will fix it for you. All right. So 20 minutes later, I found John.
So you found and communicating, you could communicate, and there was.
And I felt I couldn't feel safer.
Yeah,
yes.
That's great. We have, and I'd love to know what I've been talking to Ted, perhaps doing some more of these. So, but we're coming up on the hour, and I want to make sure you see the course coming up. I think that will probably be in some of their sessions. And let me read for those who are not. You will be able to see it, but for those who are not here, let me run down and just read some of the comments. People listening to the presentation. I can't even get all the way up. Somebody is planning to do a solo trip cross country. Herb, that's I'm assuming is a man, and I'm not looking at pictures, so it might be a woman. But they say that plans to do a solo trip across the country. I'm sure this was inspiring for that person. The only that wants to enjoy life. Somebody, thanks for an interesting presentation. She had to go. Herb again said, do great for you. My friend Shelley said, I love your courage. And she's been a traveler. It's a whole other story. And the way you interpreted your photos, life-altering solo road trip experiences will stay with you forever. Mary Fran said when she was in her 20s, she traveled alone for 2 months in Europe. Life-changing, no technology. And she's of our generation. So a little bit, a couple years younger than Uta and I. Barb said, what a wonderful way to see things. She's been inspired by you. Shelley said again, she did a similar trip 33 years ago, and she's never been the same today at 81. Kara said she had the same experience, asking herself what she was doing. What I did was look ahead, thinking wonderful experience ahead, like an athlete does. And did you do that? The anticipation itself was motivating finally.
Oh, absolutely. And I had announced it so much, I was not going to back out. And as long as I get behind the wheel, absolutely.
Okay, and then Kara said you definitely need a real paper map, gorgeous photos. Let me share a tip with me when I didn't travel like that, but when I'm traveling with a GPS, I will take screenshots because it's easier sometimes to go back and look at what they say than to come back and try to figure out in the moment so you get the full view.
Oh, I found in the garbage can, McRaleigh, what is it? The big map,
Oh yeah.
What's the name of it? You know what I mean, right?
Rand McNally.
Rand McNally. I found it in the garbage can 2 days before I left. So I took it with me. And that was the best thing compared. But yeah, you need a map. No question about that. And with the map and the GPS together, perfect.
Great, thanks. Herb tells us he is a man. I hope you weren't offended, Herb, but today's world. And looks like he's from Wendy's community. Martine said you gave her the courage to do, you're giving her the courage to do a solo trip. The Redwoods are still her favorite place to spend time. Thanks so much. Herb said maybe you and he can connect after. Do you have any advice for someone taking a solo trip? In terms of connecting now, I don't want to, since this is going to be public, I don't want to put Uta's email out. Uta has a private Facebook page, but anyone who would like to be friends with her, just who are on Facebook, request Facebook friendship. And then I always, when you do request Facebook friendship, always direct message her and tell her you came from here or who you know or something like that. And she'll be glad to, she's very open and glad to have you as one of her friends. I briefly would like to share, and I said, Ute will come back. I'm not going to talk about it. I said that I'm doing a program, The Magic of Shifting Perspectives, Creative Ways to Open and Deepen Communication. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. The Focus and Seeing will be the first week. We'll be using the camera and other things, and just the opportunity of seeing how other people see differently, and it's all okay. Focused on hearing and expressing. We'll do writing here. I'm not necessarily putting that there because some people tend to judge and, oh, I can't do that. And the third week, very much a part of this program will be sharing from each other and experiencing and growing in that way. So that's what the third week will be. The fourth week is if things have come up during that time, how to be using simple technology. I'll be going over that. The investment is the openness, willingness, and the desire to experience yourself in transform ways, to have a new listening for, with people important to you. Above all, the desire to have fun and ease with it. It's free for all who I'm changing that date also to register by midnight. And then it's simply click, it brings you to just putting your name and address, and you will be in. Stop share. So that's my pitch. So are there any more? I don't even like to say pitch. That's my invitation to you all and to friends. Please feel free to share it. I've done these programs many different times, but there's something now I think that's even more available for us. Anybody have any more questions? Anybody want to say something verbally? Okay, I want to acknowledge Suzanne. Suzanne happens to be on the top. Suzanne is a friend we also know for a long time, and she's done courageous things herself. Maybe I should have her as a guest sometime. And she happens to have been right underneath. You're supposed to be visual. Look at the camera when you're talking, and she's been right underneath, and she's been so responsive to and just you could see her. There's a Jewish word, kvelling, just full of pride with you and excitement. So,
and I adore Uta and Sheila, and the photos that you're taking on an ongoing basis are inspiring, and you always have inspiring words with them. I so enjoy them.
Thank you, Suzanne. You're very special. You know that we are in a group together as well. And Ina, you mentioned, yeah.
Okay, Ina? So thank you all again for being here. Oh, were you talking to somebody?
Ina had,
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ina.
I just wanted to acknowledge Ute and have everybody acknowledge her.
Yes, Ute and Sheila.
Oh,
Sheila, absolutely. Sheila, Sheila is, without Sheila, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be inspiring. Sheila is an enormous inspiration and support in getting me going.
Okay, thank you. Oh, this is interesting. I got on the phone with somebody recently that she traveled to Europe, Claire, alone at the age of 22 for 2 months. She was very shy and had an amazing trip. Uta is inspiring her to want to go again. She's in her mid-70s, travel solo again, and deal with the fear that might come up. Thanks so much for inspiring me.
Thank you, thank you. And there is a Facebook group, also private. You have to apply for it. 60 women solo travelers 65 and over.
Oh.
It's an international group. Amazing. I have started a notebook and it's information sharing, more or less. There are certain rules. You share your experience and you know, let's say I want to go to Paris. Where is there a good Airbnb or something like this? Any information. I found I don't live long enough anymore. My bucket list has gotten yay long compared from all the marvelous women. Very inspiring.
So what's the name of that group? I'll put it in the chat. What's the name again?
65 women solo traveler 65. I mean, if you
search it, it will
come up.
Women solo traveler 65.
Right.
Okay. Anybody wants, remember, if there's anything special you want Ted's address. I mean, Herb asked for trips. I have Herb's email address. I will give it to you and you can connect with him. And my address to get to any questions, Sheila at treasureyourlifenow.com. If you know anybody, let me know. I will have, to those that registered through Zoom, I will be sending the link to the YouTube video out. You can share. I will be creating with permission. When I were talking earlier, it was about 18 minutes that she went through even more some of the pictures she showed us. Some of you will like to experience that.
I warned you, it stumbled. Stumbled talking.
You get totally, so people listen.
I know Sheila's beating me up, but I said, oh my God.
I wasn't going to beat you up, but you put it in. So after she saw a little bit of it, she's talking about stumbling. Well, you get so involved in what she's showing. Now, one of the things I think I said, I could see how I see differently and there was nothing wrong. She saw the hole, I saw a person lying down or something in a root. But stumbling, you're hearing what she's saying, you're seeing it. There is no stumbling. Okay, thanks for letting me vent.
Thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy life.
Okay.
Thank you. You were
It's short.
an absolute delight. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Good night.
No.
Wendy, take care. Be in touch.
Yep.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Teresa. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.